John here from the board company. I'm just going to swap over these Bioboards Plutonium 1 rims with these new machined rims here that I just had done. These are prototypes. They basically give you a super wide rim compared to the original really narrow tyre, so it gives a balance. That side's already done, and we're just going to do this side. So when I designed these, there's a critical component which is these little locators in the back. So those locators there's 4 of those. They center the wheel and provide the correct alignment because it's such a wide rim when it goes onto the back of the other piece. So I get the wheel off now. Just have to split the rim. I'm going to keep this back piece, and we'll mate the new front piece into the front of the rim. I've split the wheel. I'm going to use this original tube that was in this one here. So now we can mate the two halves together with the valve slot lined up, and making sure that I was using those locating dowels there. Basically, so just click and lock it right on. There we go. Perfect fit. So it's obviously to machining tolerances, so it's basically perfect fit. And interesting to note, the original hubs had no locators, so it just relied on the bolts and the holes to line up the center of the wheel. So now we've got the center of those holes cutouts, they line up with the gear drive bolts, and that's how the hub goes together. Obviously we have to use either a bearing press or some bearing punches to get these bearings in and out. So I would advise using, you need to get some bearing press tools. I've got this set here with all the correct different bearing sizes. You can get that online. It's not an expensive set, it's just made of aluminium. And you can use that to press the bearings in and out with a rubber mallet or one of these mallets here. And you just can punch those bearings out correctly without damaging them. So here's the correct diameter to punch the bearing out of the back side of this half. This is the half that we're not going to use anymore. You can see it's super thin. That's it compared to the new half. You can see the difference of how much wider now these new rims are. So this piece here drops in here. It's just the right diameter that it sits on the outside of the bearing and the inner race. So you can then use that and just pop that straight out. And so that's now been punched through. Yeah, the bearing's been punched out. There's almost an interference fit, even from the way these are originally machined, so it's important to keep that bearing tight. So using this bearing tool, I'm going to put that on there. This is identical to the diameter of the bearing, and then I could tap this in very gently. I've actually lubricated the bearing a little bit as well to help it go through. You could also heat up the rim with a heat gun enough to, it might expand a little bit. So now the bearing's seated nicely there. We can put the spacer in and get this rim together with the tyre on it. I've got the rim on with the valve coming out the slot there. See the back side of the locating pins. These will line up with the center, and there's the slot for the valve. spacer in. You just have to carefully do this to make sure there's nothing sandwiched between the hubs. That's it. So they sit right in the center of those cutouts. It's in the right spot. Flip it over. You drop our bolts through. Yeah, they're in there now. Now before tightening these bolts, just get them snug tight and then make sure the spacer's cleared, and then push it through in the axle and just get everything to line up. Make sure everything lines up. So just have to tap that on there before you tighten up. Make sure everything's lined up inside, because really there's a lot on that one axle there. So now I've actually got it all lined up on the axle. Everything's lined up. I'll now pull it back out and wind the nut on, and just ensure that everything's seated correctly, because those bearings could, there could be a little bit of movement in the bearing, or could have to seat. So it's better to torque that bolt up tight and then back it back off again. Make sure everything's squished together nice and tight before we tighten up these outer bolts here. So now I've taken it off again. I'm going to tighten up these outer bolts now. So now these bolts are firmly tightened with the steel nut at the back. Firm, never over tighten. And I'll put some air in there. I'm only putting 40 psi in these. I think that's adequate for this much larger tyre. Right, that's that. So now that wheel's on, I'm just going to line up these line up these holes with the bearing, with the gear drives. So you probably can't see them there, but line those up and put these gear drive bolts through with Loctite, and that's done. So got the board turned on now, and the wheels are on. Yeah. These are the old wheels, the back, standard ones, and now you can see just the difference. Now the proportions for the board that it is, the proportions now are correct. Bioboards Plutonium 1 board company performance upgrade on the wheels, custom. So you'll be able to order these soon.